morning. You are tuned into 1100 WSGI, and this is Lee Marie with a special edition Go Show because today is the first Friday of April, and that means we have on Wild Doc from Wild Roots Wellness. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Oh, Heavenly Father, you are so amazing. We are so thankful. Please take this show where you want it to go. Please just have us say the things you want us to say and close our mouths when you don't want us to say something. Have those people tune in that need to hear these words. May everything we do and say glorify you. We love you. We praise you. We need you. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
All right. Wild Doc. Saving the people of the world one day at a time, right?
Trying to help people regain their health, recover their health, or maintain their health. So,
for those of you that don't know Wild Doc yet, I don't know where you've been, but he is a great Christian man, and he is healing people with the things that God put on this earth to heal us, and we're so thankful for you.
I'm trying my best. So,
how is the baby?
Baby's good.
How old is the baby now?
He was born February 2nd, so almost, would that be February, March, April, so 2 months.
Oh, my goodness.
Right at 2 months.
Awesome.
So, time flies.
Time flies. Well, there's a lot of sickness going around right now.
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about Bell's palsy, but I also want to say that even Laverne and I were both sick.
Really? What were you fighting?
Well, we were both fighting something different, so we didn't it wasn't the WSGI flu. Everybody's saying it was
WSGI flu.
She had more of a flu. I think I had more of a head cold.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
So you could kind of still hear it a little bit.
Yeah. It's all right.
But anyways, I was glad that I found that echinacea.
I don't fear the flu. I don't fear the fever.
That's right. Amen. All right. Where would you like to start?
Well, I mean, you said that somebody had asked about Bell's palsy.
Yes.
So if we want to have that discussion, we can go right into that.
Let's go ahead and do that.
And so what is so the person asking probably has gone and had a diagnosis of Bell's palsy. More than likely the physician ruled out the potential of stroke. So looking for, verbal issues, ultimately walking, instability, hand movements, things like that. So did they have other signs of upper motor neuron damage? In Bell's palsy, one of the ways to differentiate where the lesion or where the damage may be, you can do the facial movements and see if you have retained facial movement in the eyebrow or in the forehead. Mm-hmm. So if you retain that, then it's not a full facial nerve paralysis. So Bell's palsy is paralysis of the facial nerve. And depending on where the lesion is, the damage is to that nerve, then that can help you understand whether you're dealing with something where there is damage in the brain or damage at the nerve. Now, Bell's palsy, quote unquote, when you read through the medical literature, it's often going to be called an idiopathic condition, meaning that idiots don't know what it causes it. That's idiopathic. It's like idiot, don't know. Okay, so that's the terminology. Well, the reality is it goes back to inflammation. But then that goes even further into what triggered that inflammation. And so associated factors that put somebody at risk, higher risk of Bell's palsy are going to be a viral illness, if you Google it and search it really quick, that thing that people got stuck in their arms here over the last few years has a high correlation and association with that condition because it's an inflammatory trigger. Okay. So in essence, what can trigger inflammation via the immune response is oftentimes at play.
Before we get too far off of that, I did have a question because I do know a couple people actually that have been diagnosed with Bell's palsy. And as far as I know, neither one of them had the thing in the arm.
Yeah.
But at one point, people were talking about a shedding factor, like if you were around people that had, is that a real thing that could have, the Bell's palsy people that didn't get the...
Potentially.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, potentially.
Okay.
They do know that we do have exosome shed, that you get it in bodily fluids and things like that from those who got the, you know what, in the arm.
Okay.
So,
Right.
in their respiratory, breath and breathing and things like that. So there's research on that.
Okay.
So that's a theoretical possibility, but ultimately I say, I'm not going to go around and blame somebody else. I'm going to say, what did I not do to benefit or support my immune system and my resiliency, even to whether it be something being shed from somebody else, whether it be a virus or a spike protein or anything else. I'm going to say, ultimately, how I take care of my body, build my resilience, my immune system, and that comes down to diet, lifestyle, and various different stresses and neurological stress. So neurological stress can be physical or it can be mental, emotional. So taking care of those things ultimately creates greater resilience. All right.
Okay.
Luckily, Bell's palsy is something that for the vast majority, 2/3, it's about a 30 to 40-day recovery time
Okay.
for many people. So, prayer is that they're in that 2/3 and within the next 30 to 40 days, they'll have a full recovery.
Okay.
Okay. Because they're going to go in typically to medical physicians. They're going to do, again, they're going to ask the questions needed to make sure, and evaluations and physical exams to make sure that it wasn't a stroke, and treat accordingly if it was. But again, treat accordingly for a stroke is just, well, we'll see where you get in the next couple of years and hope for the best. There's not really, unless there's an immediate clot and they can use clot busting medications and then prevent further damage, but then it's really not a treatment process to restore the function of the brain. That's where something like hyperbaric oxygen can come into play. Even if you look at some of the studies on hyperbaric oxygen with Bell's palsy, you can speed up the recovery. So if it was a virus, let's say, because viral illnesses like Epstein-Barr virus, herpes zoster virus, which is the chickenpox virus, and then there are lawsuits against the, for the purpose of providing medical, or getting money for the medical treatment needed after you got a medical intervention, from the herpes zoster. We can't really say the term of what the medical, they're saying they're going to prevent it, but yet they actually trigger it. That's why ocular, facial shingles has been increased almost, I think it's like 300% since we
Really?
started
Wow.
using that,
Mm.
to try and prevent it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been huge. And so we're getting abnormalities and abnormal expression of shingles outbreaks now. Because we don't have the natural circulating strain that then helps everybody prevent more severe illness. It's just such a catch-22 when man comes in and tries to alter God's design of nature and the way we should take care of our bodies. But so inflammation, what triggers it? Okay, if it is a virus, well then how can we support the body's immune system? Maybe we utilize some antiviral herbs, some nervous system protective herbs. When I think about the combination between an antiviral and a neuroprotective herb, St. John's wort's actually a very good antiviral herb, and it's actually a very good herb for protecting the nervous system. So,
Okay.
but even things like resveratrol, which is high amounts in Japanese knotweed, you have that antiviral, but that strong antioxidant effect, so it can help prevent the inflammatory responses, downregulate that, and help reduce the damage, and thus improve the time to recovery from Bell's palsy. So there's things that we can use that God's created to support our body's natural capability to fight off the infection if it may be that, or help reduce the inflammation or protect the nervous system. So that's what's nice about herbs, I believe. The way I see it is, even when we may not know for sure, so even when we may not choose to do a blood test and seek to understand whether we're dealing with a viral illness or not, we know that it's inflammatory. We can use herbs that have a protective effect on the nervous system, but then also could cover the base if there were a viral illness and support the body's natural antiviral capacity. So does that make sense? It's kind of saying, it's like, we're going to cover both bases even when we don't know exactly what is the trigger. And that's, again, why Bell's palsy is oftentimes referred to as an idiopathic disease, because, you may go through a battery of tests and nope, we can't discover it with modern technology what caused the inflammatory response. Okay. So, but ultimately, you look at the strong evidence of association, it's more immunological. And again, it comes down to, well, why did that person's immune system have overexpression of the immune response, excessive inflammation? Why couldn't they squelch that inflammation, have appropriate control of the inflammation, things like that? Or if there's, again, that underlying pathology or the pathogen, like a virus, then supporting the body's immune system to clear it, and thus hopefully providing them, pushing them further along the road to recovery faster.
Okay. All right. We are talking to Wild Doc. He is from Wild Roots Wellness right here in Clarksville. So we're so happy to have you pretty local. And we're going to take a break right now, but we're going to come back and hear some more about this. And today is Friday, the first Friday of April already. I can't believe that. I'm still amazed. Anyways, let's go ahead and hear from one of our sponsors here. Let's see. All right, here we go.
Nothing can compare to the down-home customer service that you receive from a small-town, family-run drugstore like Southside Drug Company. Stop in and talk with the friendly staff. They've been specializing in hometown customer service for over 100 years. Store hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, visit SouthsideDrugCo.com. Be sure to tell them Lee Marie sent you.
All right, we're back in studio with Wild Doc talking about Bell's palsy. I know that some of you know friends that have been diagnosed with that recently, and as he said, there has been an increase in that. So, what else? What else did you want to talk about with that?
Well, I mean, we go from the kind of like the primary, evidence of what could be associated or causal in Bell's palsy and how to resolve it. Ultimately reducing that inflammation, providing the body with appropriate fatty acids in the diet, nutrition, things like that, omega-3 essential oils, from, wild caught salmon to wild sardines to grass-fed beef, grass-fed butter. Those essential fatty acids will help in insulating that nerve and helping restore nerve impulses once that insulation. Because a lot of times it's not necessarily the nerve itself being completely damaged and like severed per se, so the nerve didn't completely die. That's why people can recover. A lot of times the inflammation is damaging the myelin, and the myelin being unable to insulate the nerve and the trigger, and then you have that paralysis. So it's kind of like if the wires in the wall have exposed areas where the electrical impulse can then take a different route and not get to the light, then the light doesn't work. So the facial nerve, as long as it's not a tumor or cyst or possibly even a vascular issue and vascular inflammation and decreased vasculature to that area. So like, smoking or tobacco use and its damaging effects on the vasculature. So, chewing tobacco, you're putting that right there in the jaw. And if they're putting it in, that's seeping into the mucous membranes through the jaw and into the tissues there. So it could localize a greater level of inflammation via the toxins that are in those types of products, thus favoring the risk of developing, more inflammation, and thus the damage to the facial nerve, and then the facial nerve no longer sending the signals. But changing diet is a supportive way. Again, hopefully doing some simple things can help recover it. If we're looking at more of a long term and we need to support further, I wouldn't hesitate in using things like ginkgo or lion's mane mushroom, something that is going to be providing improved circulation, blood flow via ginkgo, and then something like lion's mane that's going to help in nerve growth factor production, which can help improve nerve regeneration if needed, if it's a long term and not just a myelin type situation. But then that's also, if it's a long term, I wouldn't hesitate in utilizing hyperbaric oxygen to help with the nerve growth factor, replenishing oxygen. They show that hyperbarics can accelerate the recovery of Bell's palsy. In one study, it was like 20 days rather than 34 days. It was like 22 rather than 40 or 34 on average. So it accelerates the recovery. And then, when you look at damaged nerves, peripheral nerves, hyperbarics, and many other conditions is known to help improve regeneration of the nerves, vasculature, reduce the inflammation, provide reactive oxygen species to the immune system to be able to fight off viral infections. So there's a lot of different mechanisms that would make logical sense to try and utilize something like that to help
And where
the
did they
person heal.
get the hyperbaric? You do that?
So that's one of the therapies that I provide in my clinic because it provides oxygen at higher concentrations of the body so as to allow the body to use that oxygen for energy to heal and recover faster. So
How long does it take to do that?
depends on the individual, depends on the inflammation. You know what I mean? Like if they're a smoker and not taking good care of themselves, it's going to take a lot longer versus somebody that's, they're right on that cusp. They're right on that cusp of recovery. They just need an extra boost and energy and stimulus. That's what's really great about hyperbarics is you give the stimulus of the fluctuation of oxygen up and down, plus the pressure gradient. And that is the stimulus. And then you're providing the oxygen, which is the energy. So you have the energy and the stimulus allowing for faster healing and recovery.
So I've never seen the treatment.
Yeah.
What does that look like? I mean, do you go into a...
Basically, it's kind of like, the whitewater rafting. It's kind of like that material. So it's a mild hyperbaric chamber. It's a soft chamber, which allows you to get into a, one kiddo likes to say it's a spaceship, it's like a submarine or a spaceship,
So do you sit? Do you stand? Do you keep your clothes on?
Clothes are on, everything
on.
like that,
Okay.
because you're just breathing pressurized air once you're inside of a sealed chamber, and you have circulation of air via a compressor, an oxygen concentrator, allowing for higher oxygen concentration via the pressure to be diffused into the plasma of your body, and not just being carried by the red blood cells, and then oxygen molecules being smaller than red blood cells. If you have damaged blood vessels, that oxygen now can get to areas of damage and inflammation where red blood cells can't carry sufficient oxygen to allow those tissues to heal. So by those mechanisms, you heal more rapidly. So, that one gentleman I was talking about several shows ago, his testimony has continued to grow with hyperbarics. He is now off of every single one of his medications, no longer taking metformin. In fact, he was on insulin and metformin. And again, he had to have a wake-up call from God because he lost part of his foot due to improper control of his diabetes and just his poor health and downward declining health, and his feet being burned in Florida, and then wounds that wouldn't heal. Luckily, I stepped up and I said, hey man, you got to get in hyperbarics. And because you have diabetes, severe diabetes, and you have these extreme wounds, you need to beg and plead the wound care center to get you in hyperbarics. And it's funny to me because it's like, it's sad and funny. I don't know why, maybe funny is the wrong word, but it's like, sometimes you just got to chuckle at how ridiculous it is. Like, I'm a chiropractor and having this knowledge, and I'm like, why haven't they suggested it? Mm-hmm. And then when he did go and ask, they said, you got to wait 30 days. So they were like, oh, that's a good idea. Who told you about hyperbarics? Oh, my chiropractor did. Well, that's amazing. How does he know about it? Because I read the research on how to accelerate and help people heal. That's kind of what I do. And so he went, he asked, but insurance had to wait 30 days under wound care before they would approve hyperbarics for him in the hospital. And in the hospital, they're going to use a higher pressure. They're going to use 100% oxygen as the gas to pressurize the vessel. And so kind of like in this is an emergency situation, but they did have to wait 30 days, which then necessitated amputation, a portion of his foot. But they approved 50 sessions, and they did 2-hour sessions 50 times. It was $5,500 per session.
Oh my goodness.
The guy's off of all his diabetic medications after 25 years of being on those medications because of the acceleration of the just oxygen being like a nutrient, vitally important for every cellular function in our body. You give more of it, the body can accelerate in its regeneration and healing capacity. And so it has anti-diabetic effects. It has improvements in cognitive function, cellular regeneration, DNA repair. It's like every good thing that could occur in our body pretty much happens with hyperbarics. It's just a really cool therapy.
And the importance of oxygen. And now I think about all those people that were wearing masks so much. That couldn't have been good for their oxygen intake.
I mean, luckily our lung capacity can work pretty hard to get it. It was more about the microplastics and the particulate effect that had a damaging effect than it was restriction in oxygen. Truly,
Okay.
yes, you're going to have, you're breathing some air in that has higher CO2 concentration below the underneath the mask, between the mask and your face, but our bodies are efficient. You're just going to increase respiratory rate and heart rate to get the oxygen needed, but it was more about the chemical exposure to the plastics and all the particulate that flakes off of those masks are now kind of more the real problem that was caused from those.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
So if we have to wear one in the future, like 'cause sometimes we go somewhere, it's better to have your own material one than one of those.
I don't know why I would ever wear one.
Well, like I've, gone to a
I
hospital
know.
before
Yeah,
where,
I just won't wear one.
because I do have like a little fabric one still in my car.
Yeah,
so
no,
just when
people do that stuff.
But I mean, I'm just saying the fabric
know,
is better
I know.
than the plastic, right?
I don't know what kind of, I mean, maybe I would do
depends.
like, if I could find a pure
Cotton.
organic cotton one,
Okay.
yeah, I'd
Pure organic.
be
cotton.
less,
All right. Okay.
but again, I think we have to say, it just stinks. It just really, really stinks. Like the hospitals, you want to go and visit family that's sick, whatever, or suffering, or you have a new child and the hospital wants to force you to wear a mask. But it's like, if you're going to wear it, you should open your mouth and say, I know the evidence shows this has zero effect and benefit. Like it's, okay, great. Somebody sneezes or sputum, you know what I mean? But they've also shown in studies prior to COVID that wearing masks, especially those surgical masks, that even the N95 had relatively zero effect on reducing. Nationwide, worldwide studies shown those that adhered to mask mandates more had increased rates of viral illness and problems over those that didn't. The past studies with SARS coronavirus, the SARS virus back in, I forget, the early 2000s in China and different places, studies showed that those who wore surgical masks actually had higher rates of infection, that it was a detrimental effect on infectious rates. So it was like, we knew the research was leaning the direction of, it's just so hard because people would think, well, if I put a filter in front, like this fabric, it should filter these things out. But what happens is, even when there is this fabric, well, things get caught there. There's more turbulence of the air. They showed that viral particles in these models, they would design these models, put a mask over a mannequin's face and the airway structure and stuff, and see that the turbulence caused more, particulate adherence to the airway. So the virus would actually adhere to the airway more readily with a mask on than a mask off. So it's like we could breathe it. Even if we breathed it in without a mask, we could breathe it back out because of the smooth flow of air given the God's design of our airways and our sinuses and things like that. So putting a mask on creates the turbulence and slows it. The mechanisms that are more physical and physics, then causing more viral adherence to the mucous membrane. It gets stuck there and then it can penetrate into the cells and become an infection. So we just have to look at that stuff and say, I would say if you have to, you still should speak up and be like, this is ridiculous. We need to look at the evidence and science and utilize it, because if we just keep forcing it, because it's a symbol. It's not you know what I mean? And again, and I'm like, I'm not going to participate, or I'm going to at least speak up if somebody's saying I need to wear something. Because one article actually said it was like a talisman. And if you look up like witchcraft, like there was a New England Journal of Medicine early on that discussed the fact that, I have it actually on my computer somewhere, but New England Journal of Medicine was recognizing that masks had relatively zero effect on viral illness rates, and that it was more of a symbol and a talisman, like a talisman, giving people a peace of mind. So it's like, in essence, you have a peace of mind because I'm doing something that has actually potentially a negative effect. it's like lying to me. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not going to wear something that in medical literature symbolizes as like witchcraft, a form of witchcraft. You know what I mean?
Right.
Tell-
Now we
that
do
was the
have a
exact
question.
term.
A question from a listener wants
Yeah.
to know how much are the hyperbaric treatments at your facility?
In my facility, you're looking at roughly in the ballpark, give or take, around $100 a session.
Okay.
Yeah, so not the 5,500 like the hospitals.
And then how long is that $100 session usually?
It's usually an hour,
Oh, an hour.
maybe an hour, a little longer sometimes.
Okay.
Depends on the condition. So,
Okay, so you have to be available for an hour and you just sit there.
yep.
Okay.
And it needs to be frequency. So one of the ways so one session, there are some antioxidant, anti-inflammatory effects of the increase in oxygen, but you do need to realize that one of the benefits when we're looking at a chronic condition, the frequency is like if you're trying to go up the stairs of an escalator, and let's say the higher you get on the escalator, the more of a strong physiological beneficial response you're going to get. So you want to get as high on that escalator as possible. And if you're only taking one step very slowly,
Mhm.
you're kind of going back. It's like one step forward and you go back down to square one.
You need
One
that
step forward,
momentum.
back to one. You know what I mean? So you need frequency is one of the key components to the benefits of hyperbarics. And again, I would want to know what's going on, what are the conditions, how long it's been going on, and then we could better predict how many sessions would be potentially needed to help the person out and help their body heal and recover. And that's the goal. It's not a treatment for a condition because it is more of a healing response that we're trying to achieve. It's not, FDA only approved it for 14 kind of 15 conditions, again, like carbon monoxide poisoning. This is only when it's covered by insurance, but we can utilize something like this for a supportive effect. So it's kind of
Okay.
while Bell's palsy has research behind it, in it's the use of hyperbarics to help recover the patient. It's not a treatment for Bell's palsy, but the research shows it helps the person. Well, the mechanisms are how oxygen and pressure facilitates tissue healing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Well, I love that it can cut down that recovery time
Yeah.
for Bell's palsy. All right, it's already 8:30, so we're going to hear from another one of our sponsors.
Ridgetop Mower provides lawnmower repair, parts and service, pickup and delivery, and free equipment removal. Open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, 8 to 12 on Saturday. Ridgetop Mower is located at 1101 Matthew Street in the heart of Springfield. Call Gary at Ridgetop Mower, 615-855-0044. That's 615-855-0044. And be sure to tell him Lee Marie sent you.
Mark your calendar.
All right, we are back in studio with Wild Doc from Wild Roots Wellness, and he is right there in Clarksville. Matter of fact, since it is the bottom of the hour, why don't you give him the information for your office, the contact information and such?
Contact information for the office is 931-591-2010. Again, that's 591-2010.
All right, and you are on Wilma Rudolph until the end of May.
Yep.
And then he's coming closer
near
to
to
us
exit 11
because he can't get away from us.
on the we're going to call it the Holistic Hollow.
Holistic
It's got
Hollow.
some friends, yep, some our neighbors there on the property, friends of ours that we kind of joined together, teamed up to get that property. And we have 2 old log cabins that are joined together as one home, and we're doing small remodeling there, and it's just going to be a beautiful environment. We're going to eventually do like a outdoor fireplace, like a roofed over like gazebo, maybe even like a greenhouse, walking paths. We eventually want to put in a salt room, a sauna, a cold plunge, just all these different various therapies that are naturally based that allow our bodies to support our body's stress responses or support our body's natural healing capacity and assist things that God's created. We're just utilizing it, bringing it together in one place.
Oh, that's awesome. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you in Robertson County, he is now going to be off of exit 11, correct? Yes,
Yep.
which is 3 exits closer to us. So we are very happy about that.
Nice.
Yeah, I even had some friends yesterday that said, okay, I'm ready to go.
Oh, nice.
So there's more people headed your way.
Good.
All right. What did we leave off on?
I got, well, we were talking, a lot of things, but I I think you were saying that, and this is actually a conversation I got into sitting with some moms at my daughter's gymnastics practice. And this is one of those things that I think is a very valuable tool and piece of information that I think every parent would want to know and everybody should know. And I've got the article here that I think I want to kind of review as quick as we can. We got about 20 minutes. We probably get through a lot of it. I'm just going to kind of read and we can have discussions on it. But let's just have a little fun here. If you're out there, let me ask you, is a fever good or bad? And I asked these mothers this.
Good.
Yes, you know that.
I know that now
You've
because I've been
listening to me
training with Wild Doc.
for a couple years now. We know it's good. It is the body's response. But even asking these mothers, I got various different numbers. Usually it's landing in that ballpark around 103. That's okay. 103. If it gets up and how fast it goes up, that's when it gets dangerous. And the fever, if it gets 104 or 105, then you want to give Tylenol and suppress it. And it breaks my heart because they actually show in animal trials, human trials, over and over again, it shows that suppression of a fever increases illness severity and increases. Now, symptom severity may go down. Oh, I feel better. But your viral illness may actually take your life more. Is more likely to take your life. Or cause more severe illness and hospitalization or prolonged hospital stay. So don't take my word for it, though. Let's just go through this article that came out throughout. It was published in American Journal of Medicine and Science 2021, talking about antipyretics or fever reducers and COVID-19. Fever could a cardinal sign of COVID-19 infection reduce mortality? They say fever is a cardinal sign of infection. However, little attention has been paid towards how a fever may work in our favor in overcoming this disease. It says that both animal and human studies have demonstrated that fever suppression during viral infections, either through low ambient temperatures, that means that like turning your air conditioning on or removing clothing or not bundling up and anything like putting a fan on them, or putting them in a cool bath. That was one of the things that a mom asked me. She said, well, what about putting them in like a cool bath? Would that be okay instead of the medications? And I'm like, no, because you shave the hair off a ferret. I always reference a study. You shave the hair off of a ferret and you increase their mortality when they're infected with the virus. And that's just shaving the hair off a ferret. Their mortality rate goes up, their death rate goes up. So if you put a child in a cool bath to cool their body down, when their body is causing and responding to that infection with temperature, increasing, so their body is using energy to purposefully elevate the temperature. And you're fighting against what the body is doing. You're in a tug of war against their body. Natural and healthy response. So temperatures
So along with that, before we move off of temperature, so by keeping warmer,
yes,
then that is even better. So
you'll
get
sweat
in
it
bed,
out type of thing.
get
burn
lots
it
of
out.
blankets on.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So temperatures or antipyretic, this would be medication use, may increase morbidity and prolong the illness. So as fever rises, so do antidiuretic hormones, leading to solute-free water retention. So fever reduces the risk of dehydration. That's always kind of the concern. So peeing less frequent is something that should actually occur. Now, the catch-22, though, is a lot of people will think, well, I need to stay hydrated, and they'll just force themselves to drink water, and they actually show that can increase mortality, too. So you want to, if you're thirsty, drink. Do not force water, electrolytes.
All right, that's good to know because I try to drink a lot when I'm sick, but I shouldn't be.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
Right.
Because you can disrupt the chemical balance in your bloodstream if you're forcing water into your system when your body really doesn't need it. So I really tell people we need to be in tune with our bodies. We need to be in tune with our children. So like I discussed with these mothers, I said, when my children are fighting something off, we're doing anything we can to support their body. We're going to get them adjusted. We're going to encourage them if they have respiratory issue, signs, symptoms, congestion, to really use those lungs, really cough it out. If they have the fever, obviously we're going to support that by either bundling up, turning the heat up in the house if we needed to, or getting them into a hot bath or hot shower with us, skin on skin contact, cuddling, snuggling with them. That gives our children so much relief. And that actually is an amazing time for bonding between child and parent, I believe. And I think we're kind of skipping that step that is critical for showing our children that we love and care about them. And I'm saying that somebody gives them medication and then, and then tucks them in. And I'm not saying they don't love their children like I do. I'm just saying it was something that we're getting away from that innate response of like, you're suffering, I'm going to be there for you. You know what I mean? And we're going to more of a pharmaceutical base, like let's treat the symptom and they feel good. So now I can go back to my work or whatever I need to do, keep getting things. You might have things you want to get done, but man, our children and spending that time. And I remember days when Amos had the chicken pox and a high fever and just him laying on my chest in the middle of the night and just how well he would sleep if we were just skin on skin and I had a blanket over him, and just that's one of my fondest memories. But we'll get into a hot bath and go back to like what we did. So we get into a hot bath, warm bath, and it's always needing to be above the temperature that their fever is. You don't want to go scalding, obviously. But I listen to my children. So if they're comfortable in that warm water and hot water and skin on skin and they're resting peacefully, then we're going to stay in there. They are like, I feel hot. And then we're going to let them get out. If we bundle them up and there'll be time where they're just like, they're shivering and they're hot. Their body is hot. They have that fever. They're bundled up and they're like, body is moving. Shivering increases energy and increases the mechanical way and a metabolic way to increase the temperature as well. So that's why we shiver. It's one of the reasons. And then they're bundling up. And even in your brain, if you've ever had a fever, it's like you feel cold. It's like, ooh, it's cold in here. Some people like, even before they have the fever, they start to feel cold. And everybody's like, it's not cold in here. It's hot in here. How are you cold? And then 24 hours later or a couple hours later, they're like, all of a sudden they have a fever. Well, that was their body saying, hey, go seek warmth. So consciously, your subconscious system was saying, I'm going to tell our conscious brain that we're cold, because then it will trigger them to go seek a warmth. A fireplace, a heat source, bundle up, that type of thing, to conserve energy so that we can elevate this temperature so we can fight this infection that we have faster, more efficiently, and safer. And so, but you got to listen. So if the kid is like shivering and cold, they feel cold, bundle them up. If they're like throwing the blankets off, then let them do that. Don't force, you're still sick. Let's bundle you up. Now let their body, let them lead. Listen to the body. So, that's kind of what we do. Read some other statements in here that are just amazing for people to hear in the peer-reviewed medical literature. Finally, fever inhibits gastrointestinal function as energy is relocated to the immunological response. So you'll have lower defecation typically. More statements here. We're just going to read through some things. If you've got any questions, let us know. And Marie, if you got anything, as I say these things, fever is one of the cardinal signs of COVID-19, yet routinely suppressed as part of supportive care as soon as it appears. Recent COVID-19 treatment guidelines have encouraged the use of antipyretics. The current evidence does not support routine, though. The current National Institute of Health and Care Excellence in the UK stated that. So this is that in the UK, the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence says the current evidence does not support routine antipyretic administration to treat fever and acute respiratory infections and COVID-19. So there was no evidence to support that use. There is no benefit. It says, are we setting them up for failure as the disease progresses? Meaning by giving an antipyretic, by giving medication to suppress a fever, are we setting these patients up for failure, for death? And that's why thousands of people died when they didn't need to, because we suppressed their body's response against an infection. Man.
All right. It's almost quarter till, so we got to run our last
All right.
sponsor break here.
Nothing can compare to the down-home customer service that you receive from a small-town, family-run drugstore like Southside.
Actually, I need to run the UPS store, but they are also a family-run.
Hi there, this is Tom Fox, and my family and I are the new owners at the UPS store in Springfield, Tennessee. We can help you with all your packing and shipping needs. I have our assistant manager, Daniel Sweeten, here with me, who's one of the friendly faces greeting you when you come in. Tell us about the print shop, Daniel.
We're a one-stop print shop for all your personal and business needs. We can copy, print, scan, finish, and do just about anything you can imagine we can print. We also do wide format printing such as blueprints, yard signs, banners, and we also do business cards, flyers, invitations, and booklets.
Our hours are 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Saturday, and noon to 5 on Sunday.
Our shredding service is normally $1.59 a pound. This month we're slashing it in half to 79 cents a pound. We also have 20% off our wide format printing for the entire month.
We're located next to HD Hills at 513 Memorial Boulevard. Just look for the blue awning. Come by and see us, because it's always a great day at the UPS store.
Nothing can compare.
Okay. We are back with Wild Dog giving us some great information. And I'm really glad that we went over all this fever stuff because there are a lot of people sick right now. So this actually, really crosses over well. And
Don't chop one of your legs off when you're trying to run from a tiger.
oh, goodness. And I was also asking him on the break, I said, is that why, soup seems to always help? Like when
Internally warming the body.
all right. So
Yeah.
warmth. Yes. Don't
Yeah.
get rid of that fever. All right. Good information. All right. We got about 12 minutes left.
I mean, even here, like, I don't know how to. Denique ipsa fibris quodo maxime Miriam. I don't know what language it is, but it was Annulus Cornelius Celsus. Back in 25 BC through 50 AD, he said, finally the fever, and this is the translation, finally the fever, the greatest surprise may be that it is frequently a protection. So all the way back then they knew.
Wow.
Don't cool the body, let the fever run its course. Let the fever help you. Fever is, in fact, a highly conserved physiological response to infection that occurs in all mammals, all bird species. Moreover, cold-blooded animals that cannot internally raise their body temperature, such as reptiles, amphibians, and yes, even fish, and the lowly insect, can generate a febrile response by exhibiting heat-seeking behavior during infection. So, even fever, or augmenting temperature, forcing a single-cell bacteria or virus into a sudden thermal disadvantage. So by elevating our fever and temperature, we put the virus or the bacteria at a disadvantage. Studies in mammals. So what happens when you suppress the fever with a drug? What happens when you suppress the fever with any sort of cooling? Cool rag on the forehead is probably the least harmful, but it's still one of the things we choose and would not do. You know what I mean? But studies in mammals have shown that elevated thermal support during an infection challenge, so this is like purposely infecting animals, an infection challenge impairs the replication of a variety of viral pathogens, basically. Whenever they study the virus is less efficient at replicating in our cells when a fever is there. Isn't a fever too much to bear for a patient weakened condition, though? One thing we do know is that the elderly generally do not produce robust fevers of their younger counterparts. So that is one of the arguments I often hear. Well, it's that fever is so hard on them. They're frail. But in elderly studies, one was discontinued halfway through because of the extreme number of increased death. This was in a hospital, but yet a standard care in a hospital is always to give a fever reducer immediately. Many, and even one of the moms spoke up. She's like, oh my God, like that's true because even in triage, before they even figure out what's going on, kid has a fever, run the thermometer, give them a fever reducer. Before they're even in the back rooms. It's so incredibly against science. And animals seek a heat source. How are we as human beings made in the image of God saying, I need to cool it, but the animal, that lizard, is smarter than I am. They go and seek a heat source. They showed that fever reduction increased mortality in the elderly with medications. Okay, mortality went up the more they suppressed the fever, And they had another elderly study with pneumonia, and they showed that those with 105 fever had 0 deaths. 0 deaths. So the ones who were strong enough to mount the strongest fever lived.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, because you hear some people say, yeah, I know fever's good, but when it gets certain high, it can cause brain damage and all this stuff. And so, but that tells me right there, 105, it's still okay. Wow.
Okay, right here it is. She was receiving intravenous treatment with bacterial immunotherapy vaccine. Following her 12th infusion, she developed a fever that rose to 114 degrees.
114. Wow.
She was later discharged, though, and well 2 months later at the time of follow-up. So 0 brain damage at 114-degree fever. So that is the documentation that 114-degree fever. All right.
Is that a
Summary
world
of
record?
1,761 fever readings above 39 degrees Celsius. So that would be like 103 roughly, or between 102 and 103 is 39 degrees Celsius. 357 patients admitted to New York hospitals before 1932, redrawn from Du Bois. So you have the vast majority had 104 to 105 fever. This is a chart, so you can see that the vast majority would mount a fever around 104, 105, some over 105, 106, 107, very few at around 108. But again, they have documented, there's 0 evidence that the fever causes any sort of damage to the brain. Okay? And like even febrile illness is more of a metabolic issue in the brain and nervous system than it is the heat itself.
Wow.
So when you consider that and you think about that, we have to just dispel and get rid of this myth that the temperature is what's harming. So what I tell people is we need to support the body, because we don't want the virus to get into the brain. We don't want the inflammation to get into the nervous system and damage the nervous system. Well, the inflammation is driven by the viral infection and the need for more immune cells to trigger that inflammatory reactive oxygen species response to kill infected cells, or can kill the bacteria or kill the virus. So our body uses the inflammation to kill. All right. The more inflammation needed, because a fever is not there to suppress the viral replication, the more damage we could potentially have to the brain.
Wow. This is good stuff, guys. I know you're going to want to share this show for sure. And that's just another reminder, if you're listening on air, remember you can always go on to the WSGI Facebook page or the WSGI1100.com website, and you can share this. And I highly recommend that you do that, especially for people with kids that are getting fevers all the time, because a lot of treatment is we're doing exactly opposite of what we should be doing. And so this is great stuff, Wild Doc. Really appreciate that. Oh, all right. Well, I do want to tell you about a couple other things, because this is the first week of the month, which means tomorrow the GOP has their monthly breakfast over at Purpose Life Church, 805 Memorial Boulevard at 8:30 a.m. That's a free Patriot potluck breakfast. Breakfast is at 8:30. Their program starts at 9. This Monday, the Tennessee Firearms Association, Robertson County chapter, is having their spring potluck, and that is going to be over there right at the American Legion in Greenbrier. 6 o'clock is dinner, and 6:30 is the program. It's going to be a recap of what was covered at the Gun Owners Lobby Day this past Tuesday. So, thank you to all those people that went out and stood in support of our Second Amendment rights. Totally appreciate y'all. And we'll be hearing from them this Monday, 6 o'clock at the American Legion. Also at the American Legion, remember the turkey shoots are starting up, and that's going to be every Saturday in the month of April. So you can help the American Legion veterans by either competing, or you can go and help by posting paper targets. They suggest arriving around 7:30 if you want to shoot, or 8 o'clock if you want to volunteer. All ages are welcome. Bring your eyes and your ear protection, and help out our veterans, because this is one of their main fundraisers for the year. And you can win some great prizes. I know that Stevens won bacon and hams and different stuff like that. So I highly encourage you to support our veterans. Again, that's every every Saturday in the month of April. And then lastly, don't forget tomorrow night, Saturday night, South Haven is having their big outdoor night. And I think they're expecting like 500 people. And it's only $8 for adults, $4 for kids. They have door prizes are going to be for everyone. There's going to be a silent auction. There's going to be great speakers. They're going to have those mounted head animals. I think they said 100 of them. Just a lot of great things. They're going to have a fishing pond with catfish in it for kids if you come at 4 o'clock. So they can catch a fish and they can have it filleted right there for an extra $5. So they have a lot of fun stuff going on. And like I said, they have enough chairs being set up for 600 people to attend this dinner tomorrow night. So check out South Haven right here in Springfield, one of their biggest, most popular events of the year. But we have a few minutes left, and we are talking to Wild Doc, Dr. Dale Brown. He is from Wild Roots Wellness in Clarksville, currently on Wilma Rudolph, but soon in May, end of May, we'll be moving closer to us in Robertson County. But I recommend you getting in as soon as possible, because especially if you've been going for tests and they can't figure out what's wrong, because Wild Doc, oftentimes I have seen with my friends, they've had some issue for a long time, and they go in and he tells them in 5 minutes what the problem is and gives them something. So well worth it. I don't care if your insurance doesn't cover it. I mean, do you want to keep going, where your insurance covers? And like even with that guy that had to wait so long for his oxygen, he could have saved a limb if he would have just spent a little money and had the oxygen early with you.
This hurdle, it's just sad.
But it's sad because we're conditioned to, we were conditioned with a lot of strange myths, one of them being that chiropractors didn't know what they were doing. And oddly enough, it turns out that chiropractors actually know much more than regular doctors. But it makes sense because our nervous system controls everything. So why would we want to have any kinks in it at all where things couldn't get where they need to go, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we got a couple minutes left. What you got, Wild Doc?
Well, if anybody needs to get in contact with me and wants me to help them with their health, restoring well-being, you can reach out via telephone, and it's 931-591-2010. Wild Roots Wellness Center is our clinic name, and we provide chiropractic. We provide primary care now, as I have a nurse practitioner on staff, a team member that's joined us. Again, somebody that doesn't treat fevers, somebody that understands the value of God-made herbs and nutrition, and help steer you in the right direction to have an understanding so that you can take care of yourself. And, and I know that, something like the fever goes against, I'm trying to sift through all the articles that I've said or saved and read through, and trying to find the exact statement. But it actually says in the peer-reviewed literature that it is taught that fevers are bad in medical school, but literally the PubMed article talks about how it goes against everything that is scientific, everything published in the science for the beneficial value. Here are some just titles of several articles and research studies that I have: the curative power of fever, antipyretic, the consequences of antipyretic therapy, fever alters the immune cells so they can better reach infections. Fever is a thermal regulation, turn up the heat to help the immune system. Fever promotes T lymphocyte tracking. It's like you want to track the invaders. Well, you want the fever.
Well, we do have a question that came in, and this is regarding this. It says, what do you recommend for headaches and bad pain when someone does have the fever?
I might use something like peppermint oil, but man, if you've got headaches and bad pain, I want to check the cervical spine because a lot of times that's a sign of vascular spasm. And so under the stress of the fever. So a lot of times, man, if you could probably get adjusted, there's a potential that maybe we could reduce those headaches when you have to fight the future infections. So maybe we can take care of one of the underlying factors that often is at play with headaches. But man, in that situation, it's like, again, you're better off building health to resolve that issue rather than treating the symptom, because the fever itself is not, and you can't suppress the fever, and you're treating the symptom if you're not working to correct the cause. And for the vast majority of clients and patients that I work with, it's usually subluxations, misalignments, and fixations in the upper cervical spine, or a tension type response in the neck. And then when you're under an additional physiological stressor, that's when the weak points of your spine show up and you have something like the headache or the issue in that region of the body. So hopefully we'd be able to help them in that regards.
Okay.
But, I'd maybe use something like peppermint oil in the temples, the forehead, something like that, to try and just help relieve it. Maybe some CBD oil, something like that may help with the pain. Those might be things that I would say give a try. But again, those aren't the lack of peppermint oil in your temples, the lack of CBD oil is not the cause of the headache. The headache has some sort of underlying cause. We figure out what that is. Sometimes just a simple set of x-rays tell us what that alignment is and what we need to do.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are out of time, but oh, how much good information. I'm going to be sharing this one with a lot of people. Thank you so much, Wild Doc, for coming in. And it is 8:59, so time for a closing prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this information and for sending Wild Doc into our studio. Thank you, Pat Samler, for bringing him to us. We're just so thankful. And we just pray that everybody heard this today that needs to hear it and that it gets shared, because we need to get the word out. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for today. Thank you for guiding our steps. We love you. We praise you. We need you. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
All right, Wild Doc, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we will see you the first Friday in May. You all have been listening to 1100 WSGI. Make it a great day.